Hello and welcome back to Hearts of Iron 3 and Black Ice version 11.3.5, and well, where we left off, I'd had a bit of a rant, and like the rational human being that I am, I then went away and grabbed OMG and had a little chat with him about some of the more recent changes in this version, and where I might have gone wrong a little bit. Now, what the first thing I want to say is I've not played this campaign massively dissimilarly to what I normally do, and in fact, you know, the invasion of the Middle East and South America and things, these are all improvements that I'd probably keep doing if I was to do this again. What I've lacked is a decent like Air Force. So I've not correctly monitored and maintained my Air Force at the levels required, and air power has been through some substantial changes in the last couple of versions. Now, that's all well and good if I knew, but I didn't know, and therefore I'm now in a bit of a problem because my Air Force just isn't up to scratch against what it needs to be. So wings of 6 fighters, you know, or even kind of 4 or 5 need to be standard, and I need a lot of them, like at least 130 odd, like kind of, you know, 127 odd fighters, you know, like so that you've got groups of like 3/4 but 6 as well. I just haven't built the Air Force efficiently, and that's what's causing a lot of the problems with like my shattering and things, because they're getting ground down by air power, and then units are kind of being immediately impacted kind of by that, because, you know, you bring them down to 50% and they're in combat, and then they can't, you know, kind of retreat from that. Now, I'm wrong about like terrain. So terrain hasn't been through any kind of major kind of changes combat wise, but the actual modifiers on divisions for like experience, so combat experience and leadership kind of experience and combined arms have all been nerfed. Now, you might be thinking, that doesn't sound like it's that big a deal, like, you know, but the problem you have with that is if you nerf those things, it makes the countries that build less units worse. Because the way that Germany functions is you're going to be outnumbered, right, by the Soviets. And what happens is you invade the Soviet Union and you kind of wipe out their initial armies, right? So you do what I did, where I encircled about, I think it was around 3 million men in total, and took them out in a southern and a northern pincer. And then you can try as well for a central one, which is what I was trying to pull off. Now, and then you also, you know, there are other units that you overrun and stuff in that time period as well. So if you're doing a Barbarossa, you wipe out effectively your kind of, the Germans wipe out the Soviet armies in that initial stage. Then they, via events, but normally via production, will then pump out units very quickly, and their practicals will increase. Now, the Soviets have been buffed massively. Now, OMG feels that he's probably over-buffed the Soviets, especially on lower difficulties. So the problem you have is that your balancing and your testing that he does is obviously a lot of it is based on his own kind of experiences, and those balancing things, you know, he's trying at the end of the day to make the game fun and interesting for him, but obviously I'm not at that skill level. So when he makes a change, he'll obviously test it, but he's normally playing on harder difficulties than I am. Now, the problem is with that is that the Soviets now have been buffed to the point where they're a little bit too strong on lower difficulties for kind of your average player base like me. You know, because if I kind of tag switch quickly, I will demonstrate this. So he taught me how to do this. So tag solve. Yeah. So if you tag onto the Soviets like I've just done here, and we just have a quick look, they've got 8 million men in the field by November. So bearing in mind I wiped out 3 million men, and I've got about 2-3 million men in total with no manpower. Like, I can't, I mean, I probably could turn this around if I I'd have to fall back and kind of defend a line. I could at least hold, right? So I could give up all my gains and kind of hold this and bleed probably the Soviet Union dry. That's not going to be interesting for a playthrough. So I'm not going to do that because, it's just going to be a static front. So, that's not going to be interesting viewing for you guys. But what I'm saying is you look at the amount of units that they've pumped out, okay, in that time, I can't turn that around. Now, there's a kind of separate issue with the AI as well. So the AI with more units and things, and the way combat modifiers are working at the moment, they will repeat attack you, even if it's with one division. Now, they've got more units than you, so they can afford to repeat attack you with, like, one division. If they do that, what it means is that your units still take damage, even if it's only minor. They won't regain organization, they won't regain reinforcements. They can consistently keep you from being able to reinforce your units. Now, the only way to get around that, which is what I was practicing, was having the majority of units behind the front line, leaving one on the front, but then it gets clobbered by like 6 or 7, because then the AI will dogpile it, because the AI functions in such a way that it will specifically go after weak points in your line, so you can't even kind of use one unit to let your other 5 recover, because that unit then gets shattered and runs away. So it kind of... it's not an easy kind of solution. So you've got like a combination of issues. You've got... one of them's on me. I probably could have built up the army a little bit better, I think. And the Air Force, I could have probably... Air Force-wise, it's not always my strongest point. But now that I know Air Force has been buffed to this degree, if I was to redo this, I would obviously do something quite substantially different to what I've done. I'd concentrate more on the Air Force than I did do. I'd keep a production running from like 36 rather than, I think, from 38, which is when I started around kind of building up my Air Forces in more detail. But the thing is, they're in a position, okay, where if we look on their division composition and we kind of look at the build time for things, they can build a armored unit in 50 days. And, I can't keep up with that. Now, you combine that with the fact that these proletariat divisions and things get spawned in, that causes some problems. What I would say is I disagreed with some of the... I think Blitzkrieg needs a complete rework, and I think OMG kind of broadly agreed that some of these need a little bit of adjusting. My point on this front is, so Armoured Combat Whip -5 is very strong, okay? And getting your bonuses in planes and urbans does turn your tank divisions to be quite strong. The problem you have is these malices are going to impact everything else, and they aren't worth, I don't think, for Germany, that whilst that Armoured Combat Whip -5 is, or 0.5 is really strong, that isn't enough, because you're not going to be in a position where that really ever comes up as a problem. Like, you're going to have 4 probably tank units in a province, and that can, still combat, pretty effectively. You're not going to have like 10 where that's going to make much of a difference. So, yeah, personally, I don't think that adds much. Then these here, these CAS +1 and ground attack efficiency +3, well, if we head along to ground attack tactics, we get 32 for that. And, air support on the Soviet side gives you ground attack efficiency +15 and a CAS morale of 12.5. So you're getting an additional 4 organisation. I mean, that just doesn't make a difference. And, I'm fighting... there's a tooltip. Well, where's the planes? So, I mean, look at the Air Force that I'm fighting here. Is there a... Where is it? Where's that list? Right, okay. So, I mean, yeah. I mean, just look at it. He's got 220 interceptors. I've just not done what I needed to do on that front. So I think there's a combination, as I say. There's my own failings in this one. I could have done a better job with my build-ups and things. There is a secondary point, which is the Soviet Union has been buffed, and I wasn't aware of kind of all of those buffs, and this needs tweaking, I think, is the long and short of it, and I think it will be. Like, when the bigger version comes out in a few months, I think the Soviet Union will go through some tweaks, because this isn't normal, like 1 million men there, 8 million there, 500,000 there, 600k there, and then a further 1.8 million. I mean, that's over 10 million fielded units. I can't beat that. What this means effectively is that if you don't beat the Soviet Union within 4 months, so from June, late June to kind of to early October, you will not beat the Soviet Union. You just won't do it. Your manpower will be burnt out like mine is, because of the fact that they constantly attack you because of the amount of units that they have. They can absorb their losses better than you, and you just lose. So unless you can do it in that opening couple of months, you can't do it. Now, there are things you can do to cheese the game, but the thing is, I'm never gonna play like that. I don't get enjoyment out of cheesing the mechanics or building only certain types of units in very specific setups. I just don't get anything out of that. I would rather, kind of do what I've done in this campaign, where, I've had, fun incorporating kind of the world via diplomacy and things, than do this and kind of, have to play a certain way. So personally, I think, I agree with the changes. So just quickly, now that I know what is going on with the Air Force specifically, it makes sense to me. I just didn't know about it. And now part of that's probably because I've not been as good at keeping up with like the change logs and stuff as I normally am, because I've been busy. But, it's frustrating when, the key thing is, I don't mind losing battles, right? So I don't mind being forced back like I am here, but what I don't enjoy is shattering, right? When a unit shatters, okay, if I just tag back, so if we tag so like, it's fine to lose battles, right, and to get forced back and things, and it's fine to have the odd shatter, but when you've got shattering like this, okay, and like this, and I'm 482 in reinforcement, and I've got the max brigade strengths, okay, that is a problem, and that points to the fact that the game isn't balanced. That there is problems between the AI and the mainline kind of sequence balancing. I don't want to build nothing but this. So I don't want to build. So I know this is like a type of unit type thing that can be built. So I don't want to build just that with this. Okay, or what's better? Yeah, so that one's marginally better. So I don't want to build just that with like, where is it? And what else? What else do we want to put in just as a calling card? How about like a anti-tank type thing, right? I don't want to build just that. And just spam that, okay? I just don't want to do that, because it's boring. Like, yeah, this unit here, if you look at the stats, is just going to do really well, and it's got a nice mix of everything, and it will perform well on a variety of terrains, because of the fact it's mountains, it's got armor in it, so it's got really good armor protection. Like, this is like a kind of, not a main line, but do you know what I mean? As a division, will perform well. But fuck, is it boring? Like, and from speaking to OMG, he doesn't even do these techs up here. So he doesn't even research them. So, that says that these aren't useful, and therefore that they need to get some changes made to them. So I think what I said about the Blitzkrieg Doctrine was bang on. I think it needs work. And I think, as I say, there's balancing issues with the Soviets. There's a lot I've learned, okay? And I didn't want to watch. I knew OMG was doing a Germany campaign, and the problem I have with kind of, well, not even a problem. I don't want to just copy and paste what other people do. Like, I want to do things on my own. So I didn't watch it on purpose because I don't like to be influenced by kind of what other people are doing. I just want to do things as I want to do them. And if they work, great. And if they don't work, equally, that's great. You know, it's worth me doing this because it highlights problems, okay, for people that maybe don't play as in-depth as that. So I'm going to give a shout out to like OMG here. He has a series on Germany at the moment that's quite far in advance. He's, I think, in the middle of, or just about to start Barbarossa, or he's moving his way through. The thing is, this episode's not going to be out for a few weeks. I've recorded this Germany series. I pre-recorded it on purpose to kind of make sure I've got enough content and things because I'm so busy at work. So my plan is for this to come out and then you guys to kind of watch it all. Just, you know, let me know kind of what you think about this. I'm not carrying on this now. Like, I'm afraid if you want to see me kind of stall this Soviet advance, no. Like, I mean, I can do it. Like, what I would do for those that want to know is if I was to kind of stall this, I would probably fall back to this line here. So I would aim to try and hold Salenhorsk. Okay, this is like an infrastructure dead zone down here. And then I would probably hold like this along here, this river line. And then I would probably put most of my units in this because this is the kind of weakest point. And then if that line got breached, depending on where it was breached, I would have obviously different fallback lines. But the key thing would be I could hold this here because territorial pride and things would start to come into play. But personally, I don't think that's going to be an interesting enough kind of campaign. And if I was to bring these wings back, it would make it very easy to defend. But it would just be a waiting game effectively until the Allies have the strength to land. And I don't think anyone's going to get any kind of major interest out of that. So, yeah, I'm going to call this here. Now, I guess the final question on this, and I'm going to do this as a separate video, is what would you rather me do? I could play Germany again, okay? And kind of take what I've learned and do something different with it, because it will have been about a month, probably, maybe even a bit longer, between me finishing this one and when we would start again, because I'm going to put this to a vote. Or I could pivot and do someone else. I could do the UK, which was the other option. So, you know, part of me leans towards just switching and doing a UK campaign and kind of doing something fresh. But, you know, I think there'll be a fair amount of people that probably want to see kind of me adjusting this. But the thing is, I'm going to be having to adjust it from like 1939 and kind of redo a lot of this. Now, you know, I think one of the really fun things is I've had a great time on the diplomacy. So I would do all of my kind of that stuff with spies and things again if I was to, you know, if I was to do it again. But yeah, it's an interesting one. Anyway, I'm gonna speak to you all soon, and I look forward to seeing the next episode of Hearts of Iron 3. Thanks again. Bye bye.